In fact, so soon, we'll go ahead and get started now. So on behalf of the over 800 member schools in the Illinois High School Association, I'd like to welcome everybody to our Boys Golf Class 2A State Final Coaches meeting. My name's Kurt Gibson. I work on the administrative team here at IHSA. I work with our boys golf program. I'm honored to work alongside Stacy Lambert, who oversees our girls program. And we're excited to be kicking off the 23-24 school year of IHSA state championships with our golf state finals this weekend. And so over the next few minutes, we want to go over some remaining logistics, try to answer whatever questions people might have. Going to introduce you to some key folks who will help make the tournament run smoothly. Probably nobody's as important as you guys, though, and gals and coaches, but there are others who help the event run smoothly, and we appreciate their efforts. And then we'll end with questions. I've muted everybody, so as we go through things, maybe if you do have a question, either use the chat area or raise your hand. We'll tell you to unmute yourself, but if we have everybody unmuted, it'll be, just a lot of background noise. I am recording the presentation. I'm in the final stages. We were able to do the Class 3A meeting this morning. We're in the final stages of creating the link for that. We'll do that with this meeting once it's done, hopefully by the end of the day, but if not, by first thing in the morning. This presentation will be posted in the IHSA School Center. Once you log in, look for the W tab under Departments. W means webinars. Feel free to watch this, all that kind of good stuff. I'll share with you my email at the end in the chat, so in case you do have to reach out to me, you can do so. Okay, so as I said, I wanted to congratulate everybody for qualifying for this weekend's state finals. I know the turnaround is very quick. I know the turnaround from yesterday until today in this meeting is quick, and our office sends out so much information. We can be guilty of thinking, one, that you're getting it, two, that you're reading it. We know you have a lot on your plate, but I do want to just point out that if you haven't seen information for this weekend, there's a handful of places you can go to access that. One of which is on the boys golf page in the center column. There's a field of information, says state finals or state final information, talks about housing, it talks about a packet, it talks about some other things. That'd be one area. I think you may have also received an email this morning from my assistant, Emma Karstens. But again, I know that turnaround is tough. I get it. But I think the thing I wanted to emphasize here are some places you can get information. And one of those things that we'd like you to do if your school hasn't, and many have, but if your school hasn't, is complete a school contact information sheet. Just gives us a couple of cell phone numbers for, principal, athletic director, and coach in case we need to get a hold of somebody on the quick over the weekend. If you can make sure that gets turned back into our office, that would be great. Like I said, many schools have already been on top of that. Okay, so some of the things I want to touch on. Oh, and I forgot the one thing that I was going to mention is I wanted to apologize, even though this was out of my control. I still want to apologize for the shortcomings with I Want Maker yesterday. Once we were aware there were some glitches, we were getting in touch with Doyle and his team. I'll point out as a little aside, Doyle is going to be at the state finals this weekend. He's going to bounce around the courses in Bloomington and in Decatur. So hopefully you'll get a chance to meet him and, share whatever it is you will. We certainly, not trying to sound, braggadocious or tough or anything, but we shared with them our frustration yesterday when things were going haywire. What I'm told, and I'm not an IT person, what I'm told, John, I'm going to stop my story. John, that contact sheet is either in the email that Emma sent you this morning, or if you find the state final qualifiers information packet on the boys golf page, it's inside of that. Back to Doyle. what I'm told, and I have no reason to doubt it, but what I was told is that they had more traffic yesterday on their platform than ever, and their server was simply overloaded. They increased its capacity, and once they did that, things started working. But that was later in the day. I'm very sorry for all the difficulty that caused. I have no reason to believe. I mean, we're thankful. That's a one-off, and I think this is like our third year maybe using the platform. So I have every reason to believe things are going to be okay this weekend. But I did want to pause and offer our apologies for yesterday's challenging times. Okay, so tomorrow, or not tomorrow, it's only Tuesday. On Thursday, when if you come down for the practice round, and traditionally many schools do that, when you check in at the golf course will have a packet of information for each competing school. It contains some of the documents we're going to touch on today. It's going to contain credentials for coaches as well as bag tags for your players. This is last year's bag tag. This year they're orange, but there's one of these for all your players. And each player will receive a complimentary sleeve of golf balls from Wilson. They don't have to play with them. It's just a complimentary sleeve for each player that qualified for the finals. If you don't come down, this is a practice round. So if you don't come down with your team and you leave it up to the students to go down and take care of their practice round, then do not have the student pick up the packet. Do not have a parent pick up the packet. We would rather you get the packet when you show up on Friday. And you can get that directly from our staff member who will be on site at Wyburn Golf Club. And that will be Tracy Henry. Many of you who've been to state but you know who Tracy is. And she'll be available around all weekend, does great work. So you can get that from her if you don't get it on Thursday. And speaking of the practice round, we had a great question in the 3A meeting about that. We're going to talk a little bit about weather in a few moments, but the practice round is just that, it's practice. It's not required. All our office has done is provided some organization to that over the years. It predates me, and I've been around here a long time. And I think if we just think that through, if we didn't have some level of organization, it would be chaos. People would be calling the golf course weeks in advance, setting up times they maybe didn't need. So I mention all that because Thursday looks like it could be rainy. The golf course is going to run the practice round like they would a normal day of operations. So be prepared. If they keep on time, some people probably are going to play in rain, some won't. If you don't play in rain, you'll probably play on a wet golf course. The good news is the golf courses are in great shape and could probably use a little bit of water. And I don't think we're going to get a rain out. Now that I've said that, of course, the weather will change between now and Thursday, but I'm still holding faith that it's going to be a beautiful fall weekend. More to follow on the weather. But I just mentioned that as a way to just let you know the weather is what it is for the practice round, sort of like it is for the state finals. Okay, a few things. So the terms and conditions govern play. Again, that's all available online. You've had copies available all season. I would encourage you to, look those over, make sure you're comfortable with them, make sure your players are comfortable with things. The big thing that I always like to mention is the player code of conduct is in play. We've been fortunate, at least to my knowledge, at the 2A tournament. We haven't had instances over the years where we've had to penalize players or coaches, for that matter, for their behavior. But it's a bigger stage, and you know your players better than we do. And so if there's somebody you need to make sure is in a good mental frame of mind, then please do that, because the last thing any of us want to do is be put in a position where somebody has to be penalized for language, throwing a club, whatever it might be. So really emphasize to your players that, especially with the way our policy is written, that a coach can penalize a player for his behavior. Every coach down there has a different threshold. So it's just have them prepared. Have your players prepared is all I'm trying to emphasize here. The playing groups. I'm just going to talk globally about number 3, and then in a minute I'm going to introduce our lead official from the CDGA to go over a few things. And John, when that happens, I'm ready, buddy. It's an inside joke from this morning, but he'll know what I mean. Here's what I want to share with you in regards to the pairings. Right now, the pairings for day one are available on our website. If you go to the boys golf page, click in that upper left-hand corner where it talks about State Series information and results. On the next page, you'll see day one pairings for Class 2A. Those have come straight from our workbook. Those of you that have been managers know that we have a workbook that helps you put those pairings together based on a variety of factors. So that's out there. I encourage you to go look at it. It looks like it all makes sense and follows what our established processes are. Over the next day, we'll begin replicating that into iWannaMaker. Right now, the pairings are not in iWannaMaker. The pairings are just available on the website, and that's where you can find them. Here's what we're going to do on Friday afternoon once the round is over and it's been closed out. We're going to create that workbook for day two, just like you see online currently. And that's what's going to be posted first. And I expect that'll be posted fairly soon after the round has been closed and finished. Then we'll work behind the scenes to, again, replicate things in iWannaMaker. So we're going to add another visual, if you will, to help let everybody know as early as we can what the pairings will be. So once you know the round on Friday is over, check those out. The players that advance from day one to day two, they'll populate on the workbook page. We'll show you where everybody's at. I would tell you not only for day one, but for day two, we do our best, but cannot guarantee that those schools that have multiple individual qualifiers, we're going to do our best to have those qualifiers start on the same side, whether it's front or back, but we can't guarantee it. We do have to try to protect those players that have shot the best scores. And sometimes we have somebody that's a school that has somebody that shot one of the top 10 scores, and those players on day one go off on the front nine with the top wave of teams. And then they've got another qualifier that wasn't quite in the top 10 after sectionals, so they go off the back. And it's just sort of the way it is. We'll try to, do the best we can, but I can't guarantee that if you have individual qualifiers, multiple individual qualifiers, they'll go up the same side either day. Conversely, if you have a team that qualified and you need to make a substitution, that's why you need some email addresses. So I'm going to put my email address and Tracy's in the chat room. You have until 7:30 Friday and Saturday to notify us that you're going to make a change. It's not a problem. Yeah, John, I see your question there about Byron. I agree. It's one of the yin and yang things we have going on with iWannaMaker. It's for our purposes not as important to theirs to have all the information right. We've tried to share that kind of thing with them. Sometimes they catch it, sometimes they don't. I'm just typing in my email address to go with Tracy. So you've got two email addresses you can use if you need to make a sub not during the day, but before play begins on either Friday or Saturday, and you have a team qualifier. The folks at ISU, Tom Sismoniak and his team and Tracy, they do a great job of getting people off and going, and they will let you know if there's going to be a need for the players to check in between their nines to do a first run over the scores. They'll let your players know that. Every course is a little bit different, so I don't want to speak to that other than just have your players listen when they check in, because they will need to check in. They'll be called to a specific area, likely under the pavilion at ISU, some 20 to 30 minutes before their tee time to get their final instructions. And while we're going to have paper copies of things like the pace of play, the notice to competitors, hole locations, available for players to take and put with them and carry them around, we're also going to load that into the iWannaMaker app. So they'll be able to access those through the platform as well. So I just mentioned that so you can relay that to your players. I think that's the way things are going in these kinds of events. So we're going to begin doing that on a little broader scale this year. So I did mention that we do have a representative from CDGA, John Petrarca, will serve as the lead official this weekend at the Class 2A tournament. And I'm going to pause here and let John offer a few words on some things relative to the weekend and the CDGA's role. Their function will be to make all golf rules related rulings. Our games committee will focus more on the things like conduct and pace of play. So John, I'm going to bring this over. I've got the notice ready to go. So whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Okay. On behalf of the CDGA, I'd like to congratulate everyone for making it to the state championship. We're happy to be there again, helping the players with the rules of golf. And to that end, if you could just instruct your players, if there are any rulings, they should only get it, definitely only get a ruling from a CDGA rules official. Because if they proceed improperly, then there could be penalty strokes against them if they listen to a spectator, parent, or anyone else out there. So if there's any need for rulings, I think in the app, Kurt, they can send a question to us, tell us what hole they're on, an official out there.
Yep. And as I said earlier, you are listed as an official for that, so you'll get all those notifications, John.
Okay, so there's several rules officials on the course. If you need to flag someone down or you send a question to the app, I can get somebody out to help you with the ruling. And the Weibring staff is going to mark the course before the practice round. So while you're out there, you'll see how everything's marked. We'll be out there the day of the practice round to make sure everything that we see is correct, or we'll correct some things. And to that end, while you're out there, if you see any things that you think should be marked that weren't marked, that anybody missed, just let me know and we'll get it done before the competition starts. Any questions about any of that? Okay, we'll go to the notice to competitors. There's not a lot on Weibring. It's pretty straightforward. There's a few penalty areas, and then basically the perimeter of the course is out of bounds. So there should be white stakes on all the perimeter, and the red stakes and lines at the penalty areas. And I think most of the out of bounds will have lines also. So normal ground repair will be marked. A lot of that is extensions of the cart paths. Wood chips and mulch are all loose impediments, so there's no relief from there. If there's any stakes, I'm not sure if there are any stakes or support wires for trees, those are removal obstructions. You always get relief from those. Then anything that's near a cart path, the wooden stiles, railroad ties, stones, anything, we consider that all part of the obstruction, so you would get relief from those. Now, in the penalty areas, let's say, I know on 17 there's probably a wall, but if there's any large boulders or walls, anything that's in the penalty areas, those are actually considered integral parts of the course, and there will be no relief, no matter where your ball is, in or out of the penalty area. Let's see. The only other thing is we do have drop zones. If you're playing hole number 11 or number 17, the par threes, there's an additional option to drop a ball in the drop zone with one stroke penalty. Let's see. We do put damage by animals on there this time of the year. There might be skunks or something digging for grubs. So in that situation, you would get relief from allow your ball in an intended swing. Your stance wouldn't get it, but if your ball lies in there, you would get relief from that type of situation. And other than that, I think that's it, unless there's any questions about on-course or any procedural things.
Yeah, any questions there from a procedural standpoint?
Just like to wish everybody good luck and play well.
Yeah. Yeah, question, John? Quinn, did you throw your hand? No, you're just okay. No worries. Okay. All right, well, thank you, John. And like I said, when you have players who request a ruling, that will go directly to John. He'll see that. He'll be able to relay that message and have people out there as quickly as possible.
Great, thanks.
Yep. Get that off our screen here. All right. Then I'm going to just a couple of things to remind the group about. is you're going to be out there on the course. I'm going to talk about coaching here in a moment, but the main thing I just want to emphasize right now under these playing groups is that anything you can do to keep, play moving. We've got a super large field on day one, and we want to make sure, we keep play moving so things don't get bogged down. I think the key is if you can make sure players are announcing their scores to one another, particularly after they finished a hole, maybe when they get to the next tee, we found that to be the best place to get that done. Anything you can do to help facilitate that conversation and make sure there's no, not wrong scores, but there's no discrepancies, is what I'm trying to say. No discrepancies in what's being reported to the players. That would be very, very helpful. The next thing I want to touch on, I mentioned this before I introduced John, is pace of play. We'll have information on the pace, not only in the app, but available for players. I would point out that that's a function of the games committee, and we'll be working to identify who will be on the games committee each day of the state finals. Anything, players will likely, if there are issues, be told that, hey, they're on the clock or being watched before some kind of penalties enforced. But I think the main thing is whatever you can do to keep play moving is going to be most appreciated by all. Sometimes the players just need to remember to keep things moving. And the good thing about ISU is it's a pretty straightforward course, like John said, for those of you that haven't been there in a while. It's I don't want to say it's easy to play, but it's easier from the standpoint of it's, like I said, just it's all right out in front of you. You still got to hit good shots, but it's generally pretty well right out in front of you. Okay, I want to just remind folks talk a little bit about the weather. We've been fortunate. I'm just going to gloss over the dress code, make sure your players are dressed appropriately. We've been fortunate to not have to deal with jeans, but it's very specific in our terms and conditions that jeans are not allowed, whether for players or coaches. So moving on to weather and tee times. You can see what the weather is projected to be this weekend. It's we've had a beautiful stretch of weather. You've likely have too in whatever part of the state you're at. Looks like it's going to become fall this weekend, and that's okay. We're going to have temperatures around 60 or low 60s. Might be a little breezy. Like I said, there is a chance of some rain on Thursday. Looks like it's a pretty good chance of rain Thursday during the day, but the weekend looks good. We do have a plan in place. However, if weather forces us off our tee times, our established tee times beginning at 8:30 to such a point that we have to use a shotgun start, I don't, at least on Tuesday, anticipate that happening. But if there has to be a change to the beginning of the day, it will be announced in two places where you can go and look for an update. The first is the IHSA website. If we have to move off those times and do something different, it'll be posted there. You can also follow the action on social media. You see the handle there for our X account, X formerly known as Twitter, at IHSA Weather. If there's any kind of weather-related update, we'll also announce it there. But otherwise, I usually suggest, and it's just that a suggestion, being at the course, some 60 to 75 minutes before tee time. Like I said, your players will be called somewhere in the 20 to 30 minute range before their actual tee time to report, make sure their phones are working, get their responsibilities for marking, and just make sure they have everything covered before they go out to play. And then on Saturday, on Saturday, so as I mentioned, what we plan to do Friday night, post the workbook for day two as soon as we can, and then we'll take care of I Want to Maker on the back end. So that's how things look from a weather standpoint this weekend. So having your players ready to go is the best thing you can do as their coach. Okay, coaching. So just as a reminder, you can coach until that moment your player steps on the green. I know that, well, I don't know, but I get a sense that there are some instances when coaches want to do more. Really, this is a players' event, so encourage them, support them, but at some point they've got to make the plays, hit the shots, stroke the putts on their own. So keep things moving. Please keep your passes visible as well. You know, you'll be given, as I said, a coach's pass in your packet on Thursday. If you have an assistant that was listed on your list of participants, there'll be one for that individual. We ask that those are visible around a button, hanging out, whatever, so that if there are any questions about anything, a tournament staff member, a CDJ official, we can identify, hey, this person is a coach for whatever school. Golf carts. Always a good topic of conversation. So as a reminder, our processes allow the team qualifiers and those schools with multiple individuals on either day of the finals to rent a cart. We're in the process of getting the names of those schools and coaches to the golf courses. We'll do that for Friday. We'll do it again for Saturday. I don't expect, but again, I don't know what the weather's going to do, but at this point, I don't anticipate there being specific stay on the path kind of directives from the golf course. But if they tell you that, then that's what you need to do. A school may be able to rent a cart on Friday, but not Saturday because they no longer have multiple players playing. That happens. The other thing that I really need your help with, and I know this is different than what happens during the regular season and at most regionals and at most sectional tournaments, but carts are not available for spectators at the state finals. There is a shuttle system in place, and there will be multiple shuttles rotating and driving through the course, letting people off and picking people up at some predetermined drop-off and pickup locations. That tends to be okay for most, but there are those elderly patrons and those who, may have some kind of a disability that wish there was a different accommodation being made. But this is the system we have in play. Maybe someday there will be more carts available, but at this point, we're trying to protect the integrity of the event. And we do that, we think, in one manner by having as limited number of carts as possible out there. So just passing that along and hoping you can pass that along to anybody in your community that may need to know that. Okay, there was a question about the range. The range is open on Thursday. Schools are responsible for their range balls. And, well, I don't know. I assume the range is open on Thursday. It has been in the past. I have no reason to believe it won't be. If it is, schools are responsible for those fees as well as their practice round fees. But on Friday and Saturday, IHSA will cover all those costs. Any kind of concessions that your school buys, that's on you. I would encourage you to talk to the golf course. I don't know what their status is. I'm bringing in coolers with snacks and drinks and this and that for players. If you bring that in and they tell you you can't, then you need to return those items back to your bus or wherever. So if you're wanting to do that, please contact Wyburn Golf Club to see if that's allowed or not. Okay, we have another question before I get into some other things. Tony, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, sorry I was late. I was trying just getting out of another meeting and trying to get in here. Quick question. I see we have allotted tee times for the practice round. Do I have to actually call the course and let them know we're going to have our players there, or are we good just showing up at that time?
You're good just showing up there on that time. There's nothing preventing you from calling the golf course and just confirming that with them, but you don't have to.
Okay, thanks.
They've had the same sheet that's been available in the manual all year, and so they're able to piece together what schools should be teeing off in which of those times. There's also a page in the manual that if you and another coach wanted to trade times, you could execute that and send it to the course. All right, I'm going to move on to number 9. I don't think Tom is here on the call. And Tom Simoniak is the head pro out at Wyburn Golf Club, and that's fine. Tom, many of you are familiar with Tom. He does a great job. He'll be attentive to what needs you have. But I do want to talk about number 9, these distance measuring devices. And I guess I just want to clarify, we've taken this position that as long as a player is only receiving point-to-point distance from any kind of device or application, it's allowable to be used. If this is continuing to be a concern, I don't know if it is or isn't, this use of the phone, we can talk about that with the advisory committee. But I'm wearing my watch. I can get distance on my watch. I've got my phone right here. If I've got 18 birdies, I can get my distance here. If I've got a rangefinder, I can get it there. As long as the only information being received is point-to-point distance, however that person's getting it, we have not taken any kind of position other than that's okay. It's when other, and I don't know what the practice green fee is. It's somewhere between $20 and $30. You could probably you could call the golf course and find that out. Players can share that distance to distance information. It only becomes an issue when players are using some kind of device or app that is bringing in other gradients or factors like slope or weather conditions to help them get a real field distance. Would that be my phrase? Real field distance for what they're playing as opposed to point to point. Hopefully that won't be an issue, but if it is, we can talk about it here shortly. The association does have a drone policy. And if we see a drone hovering over any of the courses, the horn will sound and play needs to cease. Players will be asked to evacuate the course. I mention that only because if it's a nice day and the players hear a horn go off, I would be confused if I was playing, like, hey, what's going on? So just let them know if they hear a horn, they got to leave the course. Hopefully that won't rear its head. It did one year, and so we've learned, hey, we got to mention this. And then finally, John spoke to the role of the CDGA. They do tremendous work. I would just remind your players that they should not sign for their score until they have gotten to the score reporting area at the end of the round. Regardless of how happy or frustrated they might be, please direct them to go as quickly as they can following their round to the reporting area, which will be near the pavilion at Wybring Golf Club. They can go through the end of the day procedures, and that's where we want them signing their cards. If they do it beforehand, there's not much we can do to save them if there's an issue. And it's the last thing we want to do, to find ourselves in a spot where, somebody's disqualified for signing a card that they probably signed too early. All right. I think I just have two things left, but I'm going to do one of them right now, and then I'll take whatever questions we might have. I did want to point out that I will be at ISU on Thursday. I'll be out there from 2:30 to 3 o'clock. Sorry, 2:30 to 3 o'clock. I'll be, depending on the weather, hanging around by the pavilion or in the clubhouse. I just mentioned that in case you have questions for me. I've shared my email address in the chat. So if you have a question between now and then, feel free to reach out to me. Email is going to be the best way to connect with me. But I will be out there. I look forward to seeing as many of you as need be. And I wish everybody good luck. But let me stop here and see what questions anybody has. I'll look here in the chat again. And certainly if somebody has a question and just wants to unmute themselves and ask it, they can do that as well.
Hey, Kurt, that packet you mentioned that'll have the school's contact sheet in it, would that have been sent directly to me or to my athletic director?
It's my understanding that it was sent to each coach.
Okay, I've not gotten that.
Yeah, sometimes we try. I think Emma sent these emails out in I'll call them small batches, but still sometimes when I know I'm on our platform, sometimes if I'm one of a dozen on an email, it ends up in my spam or junk folder. I would just also remind you that there's a copy of that in the state final qualifier packet. And while I'm sort of riffing here, I'm going to pull that page up and just sort of show you guys where you can find some of this other information. I just have too many windows and applications open. And so my computer is slow. All right, let's see if I can bring this all the way over. Hey, hey. Okay, so on this page right here, I'm sort of taking my cursor around that. You see it says state final tournament. I'm going to scroll down here just ever so slightly. Too far, of course, because it's got a lag. But you can see here, state final coaches information. You've got information, you had a note. So tells you where you could have found information as well. So that's the area I've been sort of referencing during our meeting.
And sorry, quick question. The tee times that are in there are set. That's accurate. Our 6 guy will go off. It's 8:30.
I believe that they're accurate not only in the manual for the practice round, but also for the day one pairings that are in that, what I call a workbook kind of spreadsheet looking document.
Yeah. Okay. And then the scores will determine the tee sheet for Saturday.
Correct. Yep.
And is it
The
top
top
teams
8
will go off
teams,
last?
the top 8 teams will advance to Saturday. And then the top 40 individuals not on one of those 8 teams will also advance. And if we have ties for the 8th place team, day 1 to day 2, all those teams advance. If we end up having people tie individually for 40th place, all those ties advance as well from the individual standpoint. No, you didn't miss Friday tee times, Lou. We didn't really show anything. If you go to this boys golf page that I think you can still see, click up here where it says state series information and results. On the next page, we see state final tee times. Click on 2A, fingers crossed, deep breath, and voila. There they are. And so a similar looking sheet will display at the end of the day on Friday once the rounds have been closed with the Saturday tee times. Got someone typing here, so I'm just gonna, I don't know if there are more questions. So the last thing, and then we're done. I just want to say thanks to you folks for the work you do with young people. It's an awesome opportunity we have to work with high school age students, to see them realize great successes, to see them sometimes stumble but learn from it. You have a great calling, and so I want you to know I appreciate all that you do and what you've done. I'm going to be stepping aside at the end of this school year, so looking forward to whatever my next chapter might be, but it's been a true pleasure, honor, and joy in my life to work here and to work with you folks. And trust me when I tell you, I'm very envious of the opportunity you have. When I walked away from coaching, that was tough. So have a great weekend. Safe travels to Bloomington. I don't know who's responsible for bringing the good weather, but don't mess up and forget it. I'm teasing. It's Emma's job to get the good weather, but anyway, we'll see everybody. If you want to come say hi or whatever, or have a question, email me or come see me on Thursday at 2:30. Otherwise, we're good. Thanks, everybody, and see you soon.
See you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt.
Yep. Thank you, guys.